And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be looking at James Harden, and we are going to be asking ourselves, did James Harden change the game? Now, recently, to the media, James Harden, he previously said, quote, that he was one of the players that, actually the quote starts here, quote, the NBA had to adjust to, end quote. And let me just go ahead and see exactly what this article is saying. So his skills and techniques have made a significant impact on the league and on media day, and well, not on media day, but to the media, he said, I'm one of the people that the NBA had to adjust to. And to that, I say yeah. Yeah, he definitely impacted the league in a lot of ways that most of them, in my opinion, were a little bit negatively, but still, he did in fact change the NBA. And for starters, he's nowhere near the same player that he was on Houston, but he most definitely, when he was on Houston, changed the game. And I do actually have some examples of that. So here is the funniest example that I have right here. So as you can see, this is Josh Hart guarding James Harden. Now, if you notice, Josh Hart is guarding him, but with his hands behind his back. That usually never happens for any NBA player. Like, there is not a single NBA player that defends anyone like this. And the reason why the Lakers were resorting to this was because, like, the Houston Rockets were getting to the free throw line a lot. And that was part of James Harden's game. Just the fact that he was able to get to the line so easily, and that it was just almost impossible to guard Harden, because if you play him real tight, he's going to blow right by you. And chances are he's either going to make the layup or he's going to do his signature arm hook, where he sort of grabs your arm and then flails his body around like this and then gets to the line. And that results in 2 free throws for Harden. Not to mention, if you play back on him a little bit in Houston, you are also victim to his lethal step back and his double step back, which at times people think was a travel. But I mean, James Harden, with that skill set and with those moves, it really made it difficult for people to guard him, because it's like, okay, what is he going to do now? Is he going to drive to the paint and get a foul, or is he going to take a step back and just hit the 3 in my face? And it's like, it really caused a lot of people to be confused in exactly how to guard him. Some instances, they were guarding him like this, literally just cutting off the step back entirely and forcing him to use his non-dominant hand. Problem is, James Harden is just so elite at the point guard position and so good at basketball that he can still drive right. But he is giving him the lane over here. He wants him to drive to the basket. And again, that's when you're guarding James Harden, that's really not ideal. And another funny thing that I remember about prime James Harden was Ricky Rubio. He, instead of guarding him in front, he guarded him from the back. Like, Ricky Rubio wasn't even in front of James Harden. He was behind James Harden trying to guard him. And it's like, he had the league so confused. And so everybody was just like, how do you guard this man? And then eventually, the NBA changed. And they introduced this new rule. Now, a lot of people think that I will say that James Harden did have a lot of influence in this rule, and like his style of play definitely affected the implications of this rule, and definitely was an inspiration for this new rule that the NBA put out. They put out this new rule actually a while ago when James Harden went to Philly, I believe. But however, I call it the Trae Young / Luka Doncic rule. Now, what does that mean? So, in a couple of seasons ago, Trae Young, he'd have this signature move that would always get him to the free throw line. And Luka Doncic had this same move too. So essentially what they would do is Trae Young there would be a screen, right? So the screen is here, Trae Young comes around the screen, and defenders, usually when they do have a rim protector, they try to avoid switches, right? And so that would mean that the defender that is being screened right here would have to go around the screen and try to catch up to Trae Young. Once he sees that the defender is going around the screen and trying to contest him, Trae Young, what he would do is he would stop moving and he would try to get his defender crabbed behind him. And once he gets like around the free throw line, what he does is he'll jump into the defender that is behind him and then flail his body like that and then get a foul. And it would result in 2 free throws 9 out of 10 times. And people were seeing this, and obviously people would be very, very, very upset because in that instance, what is the defender supposed to do? The defender is behind Trae Young, Luka Doncic, or even James Harden, who even does this move. The defender is like essentially like Trae Young has an open shot since the defender is behind him. But instead of taking the open shot, he just jumps into the defender that's behind him and flails his body and gets rewarded for a foul, which makes 0 sense. And at that point, it's obvious that Trae Young / Luka isn't aiming to score. They're aiming to draw a foul. And so then the NBA came in and they changed that. So, excuse me, when a player does a quote unquote, and I say like quote unquote because like the interpretation of this term is an umbrella term. Whenever a defender does an offensive player does a non-basketball move, then the ref isn't going to call the foul on that. So meaning that if Trae Young were to try and do the thing that I just said, where he jumps into the defender and he flails his body. And sometimes the defender doesn't even have to be behind him. Like, the defender can be in front of him, too. Like, he'll pump fake, and then he'll jump into the defender and then try to draw the foul. So, when the ref sees that and interprets that as a non-basketball move, there's not going to be a foul called. And this this is one of the big reasons why James Harden has sort of slowed down, I think, on top of just not being the same explosive player that he was, but he hasn't really been able to get to the line nearly as much as he was on Houston. And there's some debate that, sometimes the refs don't actually do call the fouls and actually don't even remember the rule. But again, it's down to interpretation because realistically, what is a non-basketball move? Like, to me, a non-basketball move is a move where you aren't trying to score. You are not trying to put the ball in the hoop. That, to me, is a non-basketball move. Because if you're looking to draw a foul, you are not playing. To me, you are not playing basketball. Like, it's a difference between pump faking and trying to go up strong when the defender is in the air. That's a completely different thing. And going up strong when there's 2 people in front of you, that is a completely different thing. But doing this to try and get a call and falling to the ground to try to get a call, a non-basketball move in my opinion. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of players that do this and a lot of players that do that and a lot of players that do this every single time, and it's really annoying. And for those of you guys who are like on the audio side, you aren't seeing it, but I am flailing my body like how James Harden would flail his body trying to draw a foul, or how Joel Embiid would try to draw a foul as well. It's really it's, in my opinion, that's a non-basketball move. But the refs might interpret a non-basketball move differently. Maybe they think that drawing a foul is actually part of the game, and it is a basketball move to try and do that and to try to reward your team with points. Again, it's down to perception, and it's down to opinions. So that's one of the reasons why it gets called. But recently, in the first year when this rule was implemented, we noticed a huge difference in how the refs were actually officiating some of the games. And that's you can make the argument that it sort of wavered a little bit. But the main point was, yes, James Harden did in fact change the game. And whether he changed it for the better, whether he changed it for the worse, that's down to your interpretation. But again, there has never been a single NBA player that I've ever seen get guarded like this, get guarded like this, and get guarded like this. Never seen that before, And the reason why people were doing that was because that James Harden was just so difficult to guard that nobody knew how to guard him. It's just like you had to get lucky. Like, that's really how it was. You had to hope and pray that he was having an off night and that he just couldn't hit his three-pointers. If he was having an off day, then maybe you had a chance of winning the game. But he still was able to get to the line, and he still was able to drop at least 20 points. I remember one of the funniest stats that I saw was the fact that James Harden, he was shooting horribly from the field, but he ended up taking 25 free throws, and so ended the game with like over 25 points, despite the fact that he shot poorly, which was very, very funny. But again, yes, James Harden changed the game. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, whether James Harden changed the game or whether he didn't. But now we're going to go ahead and go into the fourth segment where I talk about fantasy basketball and some fantasy basketball trends, who I feel you should draft, and what you should do, like looking for when you're looking for players in fantasy. So I'll be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.